let's start. Let's start. This is a big one tonight, my friends. This could literally change your lives. It could save your life. It could get you a much bigger portion of the world to come than at present you have. It could save other people's lives up there present. So a little intro into, we're going to be talking about charity and we're going to be talking about tzedakah. But before that, I want to share with you something that my dear friend Rabbi Gerziek shared with me on Tuesday, which goes like this. We're taught in the Code of Jewish Law, Mishenechnas Adar Marbim Besimcha. Do you know that? You know, he goes like, you can do Mishenechnas Adar. It's like that. Or that one, you know. Misha. So all those lovely songs that Mishenechnas Adar normally means when Adar comes in, happiness and joy is felt for the Jewish people. It's a great time, by the way, to have a court case. If you ever, God forbid, have to have a court case, you've still got 3 weeks to try and get the case for the month of Adar, because Adar is awesome, and it's the Jewish month, and it's a month when you're going to win. We won against all the odds, against Haman and Achashverosh, as we're going to, please God, learn next week. So next week's our Purim class, so please tune in next week to get you in the mood for Purim, to explain to you why it's such a mitzvah to get smashed out of your faces and get drunk. We're going to explain that next week. But for tonight, we're going to touch on what does it mean when Adar comes in, there's more an increase of happiness. Now, how many of you, please message me now, has anyone of you felt a shift of energy? Has any of you felt a bit of happiness going down? Anyone feeling any happiness since the past few days? Right, it's the 6th of Adar tonight, so you've had 6 days to feel the shift. So many people I speak to say, not at all. Haven't felt a change at all. And the reason why is an amazing reason. And this is mind-blowing stuff. So Rabbi Gerzi explains, Mishenechnas Adar has a two-way meaning. It can mean when Adar comes into your life. But for most of us, we have a wall up. We have our ego strong. We have the evil inclinations super duper powerful, and we don't let spirituality come in. For example, how many of you, let's say you have a friend, but you don't really let their emotions come into your world because, you know, you have this wall up, you have your stuff going on, you have your narrative. So if we stay in our lane, if we stay with our narrative, if we have walls up, we're not letting Adar come in. So the mystics say, Mishenichnas Adar. When you enter Adar, then Marbim Besimcha. You have to learn for you to enter the spiritual energy that Hashem is flowing into the world right now. But tragically, most people are so far away from that energy. Spiritual energy is almost a bit like a radio wavelength, where tragically you almost like you have to know the channel to tune in. So the way you tune in to the spiritual channel is like in the Amidah, to step back, step out of your life, turn off the noise. Let's just do this now for a little minute. It's just like 30 seconds. Try and do this with me, right? Just close your eyes. Everyone, close your eyes. Unless you're driving, then don't. Or driving a plane, right? But if you're in your home, close your eyes and just relax. Clear your thoughts. We're not going to do a whole meditation now. You want to do whole meditation, join me on Monday night. But just very briefly, just now imagine now, you've got your bags packed. And I'm taking you now to a new town. For a month, you're going to spend a beautiful month in the town of Adar. It's a new zone. It's a new space. It's a spiritual experience where there's tremendous joy, where there's tremendous happiness. Everyone now take your bags, and now I'm taking you, see the signpost, Adar, Adar, Adar. Now the city's there, the city gates are there. You're walking through the gates of that city. You are now in Adar. Misha Nichnas Adar. You have just now entered into Adar. The Kabbalists say Adar stands for Aleph Dar. Hashem is dwelling with you. From now on, over the next 3 weeks, you're going to see that Hashem is in your life, right, left, and center. You'll see Hashem doing miracles for you. You'll see there's no such thing as a coincidence. Providence is going to really play a huge part in the next few weeks, and it's that which brings tremendous joy. So with God's help, please God, you are now entered in that month of Adar, and now you're going to feel it. Hopefully you enjoy that. And now you're in Adar. Now we can go on. Now I want you to have a lot of joy. This week's Parsha, by the way, for those in Adar, now you're in this month of Adar, and next month's going to be the month of redemption, so you've got to do the same. You've got to go into the Nisan city next month. It's incredibly good mazal for Am Yisrael, for the Jewish people, for you. So it's really important, my friends, that you now maximize the time. This is it. You've got 7 weeks to capitalize. Those of you, for example, looking to get married, now is the time, first of all, to get out your Tehillim and do more Tehillim than ever, and say more Psalms than ever, and give more charity than ever. But ironically, do whatever you need to do to find a match, whatever that works for you, whether those of you who go on apps, those of you who speak to matchmakers, those of you doing Corona crushes and Zoom dates, or Bumble or Hinge, or whatever you're going on, as long as it's the Jewish filter, do that. Do that. Ollie, definitely not you. You're happily married. But those who are singles, please, and my daughter definitely not. She's definitely happily married. So ban you and Dan as well. But those who are singles, go on those apps and say, Hashem, I'm doing this for you. And put in the hishtadlut, put in the effort in order that Hashem can send down the blessing. Those of you who perhaps are looking to do business deals, if my dear friend Johnny Kaplan's there, Hashem should bless you, Johnny, to have tremendous wealth coming this month. Do some great deals now. Send some emails that maybe you haven't sent before. This is the time for max hishtadlus. You have 7 weeks. Okay, you have really now Adar and Nisan, best time ever. So if you're now entering the month of Nisan, right now the month of Adar, maximize that time. Okay, that was my little intro, everybody. Let's begin tonight's talk, the Kabbalistic roots of charity. Let's do this. So this is the week Parsha is called Truma. And it says the following, Vayidaber Hashem Moshe Lema. Hashem spoke to Moshe saying, Daber el b'nei Yisrael, speak to the Jewish people. Nice that you were there, Johnny. I was wondering, what happens if he's not there? V'yikchu li truma. And they should take for me a donation. Me'es kol ish, from every single person, asher yidvenu liboy. That which his heart can give generously. So Hashem is telling Moshe Rabbeinu now, like every old rabbi, to be a fundraiser as well. Trust me, it's much to my chagrin and to our chagrins, right? But even Moshe Rabbeinu, I'm sure he didn't really love that side of the job. But it's what Hashem wanted. So Hashem says jump. He goes how high? And he starts jumping and he starts fundraising. And this specifically was fundraising. And the Jewish people having the opportunity, even when they're in the desert, which is quite amazing if you think about it. You know, they weren't making money, but they had money. Nice to see you, my dear friend Adam from Israel. Love to see you, Adam. So they took money with them from Egypt, and they had some money, and now everyone had to contribute towards the building of the Mishkan, the building of Hashem's house, the building of the tabernacle, the building of kind of the synagogue in the desert. And from here we see the beginnings of the concept of tzedakah, the concept of charity. And I've got a few questions. Number one, it says, V'yichu li truma, you should give for me. And the Kedushas Levi explains that one way to focus prior to giving charity, say, Hashem, I'm doing this for you. In fact, the Kedushas Levi goes further and says, really everything, that's what you need to do. Even when you're about to tuck in to a delicious piece of chicken or steak or sushi, whatever you have on a Friday night. But as one of my Rabbeim told me, before you say Lichvod Shabbos Kodesh, I'm doing this for Shabbos, I'm doing this for Hashem, you're not doing this for you. Even if you go to a stunning restaurant in the middle of the week, you make the blessing first, you say, I'm doing this for Hashem. So everything you're meant to do for Hashem, especially a mitzvah and especially charity. But then what I want to focus on is this word, V'yikchu. It says in the Torah, Hashem says to Moshe, V'yikchu, and they should take. That doesn't make sense. It should have said v'yitnu, and you should give charity. We don't call it taking charity. We don't say everybody go and take some charity. That's like nicking people's charity boxes. Like, please don't do that. That's kind of forbidden. So what does it mean to take charity? It should say to give charity. You got the question? Good question. The answer's stunning. And the mystics explain, because real charity is you are taking part of your ego, that animal self. It's almost like an animal sacrifice. You're sacrificing. It should almost hurt. If when you give charity, it's like water off a duck's back, it's just like you're giving out tissue paper, then actually that's not the level. The level is you should be like, oh my gosh, I can't really afford this, but yalla, I'm going to do it anyway, because the money's not mine to start off with, which I'll explain in a minute. Like, it should hurt. So if you can do it, where it actually almost hurts you to give, now beyikhu. That's how you're meant to give charity. It's taking of the ego. You're taking of your finances, your material desires, and you're giving it up for a higher cause. That's, my dear friends, how to give charity. And this is the way it works. This is the way it works. Let's go. First of all, you got this amazing Mishnah in Pirkei Avot. Amazing Mishnah in Pirkei Avot. You check it out. It's in chapter 3, Mishnah 8. And it says, Rabbi Eliezer ish Bartosa ometein lo mishalo. Give him from his own. It's all about giving charity. So we know, even when you give charity, it's give it almost back to Hashem. Sha'ata v'shel chashalo, because you and everyone is Hashem's. V'chein b'David ha'omer, and King David said from the book of Chronicles, Ki mimcha hakol, for everything is from you, Hashem. U'miyodcha nasanu hakol. So this book is Hashem's. You know, this glass is Hashem's. Everything we own is Hashem's. And Hashem's giving it on loan to us to try and utilize it to the best of our ability to make light, to bring light to the world, to make a Kiddush Hashem. But it's not really ours. The whole thing is one big loan. It's a fallacy to think it's your money. How many people they're counting their money and it's mine. It's not yours. That's why in Aramaic, they chose the word for money called zuz, because it's zaz misham lepo. Money's here or there. It's a currency. It's not meant to stay with you. It's meant to be with you for a small amount of time, for a while, to do some good. And then it's meant to go to someone else, and then someone else, and then someone else. The Arizal says something very beautiful, and I want you to think about this next time you give charity. And this is mamash, the Kabbalistic roots of charity. Everything stems from the name of Hashem. So one of the most important names of Hashem is the Yud, and the Hey, and the Vov, and the Hey. So the Arizal says, when you give charity, first of all, Yud, take your hand. That inspiration to want to give charity. You put it in your pocket. That's the Yud. It's the desire to give. Hey, now it's actually, you got your coin, right? You get out the coin. It's now in your hands. It's now in your hands. Your hey is that you're about to do the act of giving. Vov, you stretch out your arm, which now looks like a Vov. And then hey is finally giving it into someone else. So when someone's going like that for you, right? When a beggar comes and goes like that to you, he is the last hey of Hashem's name. He's not someone annoying that's trying just to steal your money. It wasn't your money to start off with, and it's only your money on loan to give at least 10%, as we'll see soon, to give to charity. So it's giving you an opportunity to complete the name of Hashem. It's amazing. You can do the Yud because you want to give. The Hey, you start to give. The Vav, your outstretched arm, but you still need a charity. You still need a recipient. You still need someone who come to you and say, please, can I have, for you to complete the name of Hashem. Try and go through that meditation next time you're giving charity, that you're initially giving Yud, Hey, the hand, outstretched arm into someone else's hands. And by the way, coming to Purim, the mystics explain that anytime someone goes like that to you on Purim, just give. And that's why I have a lot of change with you on Purim, especially if you're going to be out and about. Of course you can. Else, right? And you should have a lot of change with you on Purim. So if you're going around and little kids are coming in little baskets, even who knows what's going to happen this year with Corona, but I'm sure there'll be ways to still, please God, give charity in a safe way. Then don't turn anyone down. And the Arizal says, if you don't turn anyone down, then Hashem will not turn any request of yours down. My dear friends, next Thursday night, Friday is such an opportune time to pray, such an opportune time for Hashem to receive to give and to answer our blessings and to almost give us charity. But it's based on Hashem Tzilcha. Hashem is your shadow. The amount you give and the way you give will be the way Hashem gives back. So literally anyone that goes like that, you give, which brings me to a very important point, that in your life generally, if someone comes to you and comes into your reality, into your world, into your orbit, and ask for money, that's essentially Hashem saying to you, try and help. And even if you can't afford much, even if you just give £18, if you give £10, if you give £5, you give something, you give £1, you give 50p, give something, you've now completed the name of Hashem. You've now activated godness into this world. Hashem is all about love and giving. It's about giving. So when we give, we're replicating, we are experiencing godliness into this world every time we give. It's one of the most spiritually important, if not the most spiritually important thing we can do, as we're going to see soon. And I highly, highly recommend that every time you pray, before you pray, you just give a bit of charity. You have a charity box in your home, and you make sure you have lots of change. And every day, almost 3 times a day, even if it's 2 pence, 5 pence, just going through the act of putting your hands in your pocket, taking the money, putting it in a charity box is spiritually incredible. Says Rabbi Dessler, the great Rabbi Dessler asks a beautiful question. What's greater, to give £1,000 to one person or £1 to 1,000 people? So obviously for the recipient, he wants the £1,000. And that's not the question. Rabbi Dessler says, what's going to bring you, the giver, closer to Hashem? And Rabbi Dessler says, without doubt, even though it's an amazing thing, really the recipient isn't gaining much just from £1. What can they really do with £1? But from the perspective of the giver, that giver is now much closer to Hashem, because giving 1,000 times every time you do the act of giving, that's why if you can give 3 times a day, even a couple of pennies, in the year you've given 1,000 times. And therefore, my dear friends, I really recommend you learn to give so much more. It doesn't have to be, it's not the amount, it's the frequency of giving. The more you give, the closer you are to Hashem. The more you're going to erode your ego. Every time you do that act of giving, it's the yud and the hey and the vav and the hey. Every time you do that act of giving, it's taking of your ego. It's diminishing your ego. Your spiritual light is going to come out more and more and more and more and more and more. So let's learn together some of the laws of charity. Let's make it a little bit more practical than some of our usual Wednesday nights, which I personally think is practical, but it's a little bit spiritual and mystical. Let's try and bring this a little bit more down to earth, as my wife would like it, a bit more practical. And let's learn some of the core laws of charity, and I'm happy to take questions about practical scenarios of when to give charity, how to give charity, b'vakasha. But please stay for the last 20 minutes, which is really incredibly mystical, inspirational stories, which hopefully will make you cry and blow your mind and make you smile and make you just feel a lot of light and close to Hashem. That's the idea. So let's give a bit of background of charity and some of the laws. First of all, there's a Talmud in Baba Basra, page 9 and 10, which really sets up some of the core reasons why we give charity. Some of the core paramount messaging of what happens when we give charity. The Gemara, for example, says, when you give charity, you're at that point even, we'll answer that soon, Alex. We're going to get to that soon about Jewish charities. So hold on, don't go anywhere. Nice to meet you, my friend. Right? Like, go nowhere. And we'll get to that in about 13 minutes. So first of all, it says if you give charity, you could even be greater than Moshe Rabbeinu. Every time you give tzedakah, as I said, you're now getting to emulate God. You're not only emulating Moshe, who's, by the way, we're going to speak about maybe right at the end, whose birthday is tomorrow night. Happy birthday, Moshe Rabbeinu. And this is your side as well. So we're going to get higher than Moshe Rabbeinu, says the Gemara. Also, it says, Gedola tshuva shemekareves hagula. That's going to bring Mashiach. We want Mashiach to come, the way to bring Mashiach, the way to end this pandemic and this pandemic of ego, which is out there in the world. We'll answer that soon, else, is going to be charity. It says charity brings Mashiach closer. And then finally it says stoka tatzil mimovis. Charity saves from death. One of the things, if someone, God forbid, has got ill with COVID, if you've got any loved ones who are very ill with COVID, as well as obviously praying, give some charity in their merit. Give some charity. Stoka tatzil mimovis. Charity saves from death. 2 quick stories. One quick story about that. Rabbi Akiva had a daughter, and the astrologers said that on the day of her wedding day, she was going to die. She was going to die. But what you do as a father, you still want to marry off your child, and you're going to trust Hashem that it's going to be somehow okay in the end. And what happened was, on her wedding day, as she put a brooch in the wall, it killed the poisonous snake which was out there to kill her. So afterwards, Rabbi Akiva said to his daughter, my darling daughter, what have you done to have saved your life? What have you done that you managed to have your life saved? And she says, the only thing I can think of was at my wedding meal, I saw a poor person at the back of the hall, and I went and I saw they were hungry and they hadn't eaten, so I gave them my wedding meal. Rabbi Akiva says, now I understand. Staka tatzil mimovis. Charity saves from death. So that's how huge charity is. A few of the verses in the Bible, because really everything stems from the Torah, from the Old Testament. So the first verse, if you want to check it out, is in Deuteronomy chapter 15, verse 7. It says, Ki yevecha evyo, and if there is a destitute person amongst you, from any of your brethren, in any of your cities, in your land that Hashem has given you, you shall not harden your heart or close your hand against your destitute brother. So you've got this amazing posuk, which is the core, Hashem's calling for us to go and give charity. There's another verse, Ki pasayach tiftach es yodcha, rather you shall open up and continue to open your hand, whatever to him. You see, it's not just a coincidence. We're talking about opening of the hands, which, as we said, is the Yud and the Hey. There's another post. There's many other psukim. Probably the famous one that many of you know is in Genesis, where it says by Jacob. Jacob says, "Hashem asa asreinu loch." I'm going to give you my tithe. I'm going to give my 10%, which is really the core where it comes from. So we're going to get there, my dear friends, on Instagram. Give me like 3 seconds, and then we're going to start asking practical questions about who to give to, when to give to. By the way, that's my first ever Instagram question. So I'm like, big day. You've made my day, Alicia. Thank you. So next, what other verses? So you've got this verse about actually 10%. So my dear friends, this is really important. Nice to see you, Eitan. Stay with us. Give 10%. Post-tax. Okay, it's not pre-tax. It's post-tax, the money that comes into you. Make a calculation, speak to an accountant to also almost make sure also automatically, don't look at it as your money. Because if you start looking at it as your money, that's why sometimes the Yetzer Hara, the lowest self, doesn't want to give it all. But if you know, as soon as you've given, as soon as you've got paid, 10% straight away, it shouldn't be coming into your kind of account and spending, right? Straight away, 10% belongs to Hashem, belongs to the world of charity, belongs to give. That's going to really help you. Maimonides says if you want, you can go up to 20% for the millionaires that are listening today and the billionaires, right? But it should be at least minimum 10%, maximum 20%, says Maimonides. First of all, before we get into the list of priorities, there's a way to give. I want to share with you Maimonides' famous 8 ways to give to charity. So if you want to check this out, and you look in maybe Chabad.org, the website, to see Maimonides, and it's called Hilchot Matanot Aniyim, in the book called Zra'im, in chapter 10. Here we go. The highest way, the best way to give charity. Might be this a famous English proverb, which has been coined about 150 years ago, which is give a man a fish, you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, you feed him for a lifetime. And that's maybe, you could say, originating from the Rambam, who wrote 800 years ago, my friends. 800 years ago, Maimonides writes, the best way to give charity is to give them their self-esteem, is to give them their dignity. And if there's any way to give them a job or to create the facility that they can work for themselves or for you, and they thus have dignity with the money coming in, that is the highest way. Because part of giving is how you're going to make the recipient feel. And yes, you might think you're going to give the recipient £1,000 and he will be happy. He will be so much more happier if he earns it himself, according to Kabbalah, because we try to study a lot of mysticism here. There's an idea called Nama Diki Sufa from the Gemara and Yerushalmi, bread of shame. People are embarrassed to actually receive. You should know that as kind of a default position. People are generally embarrassed to receive something. So therefore, if you can give them an environment that they're going to receive without being embarrassed, that is the highest thing. Highest. Now you might think, what chance have I got to give someone a job? Think about it. Maybe you can be somewhat creative. Maybe you can join. One of my friends today was just telling me how he's investing in a business that was going really badly. Maybe that could be if you've got someone whose business is like about to go under. So you could also do it from a perspective of you can gain some you'll owe some profits as well and some revenue as well from that. But ultimately, it's also a charitable act because you're saving your friend from going under. So that's going to be the highest way to give charity, to give them their dignity, to teach them how to fish, per se. Giving them the fishing rod, obviously, as well. Next one. And this is critical now. And again, I don't know if you feel this is practical, but I really think it's something you should try and aspire to try and achieve. Especially over Purim, you can do it. Which is called doubly anonymous. In other words, we're going to talk about doing things in an anonymous way. It should be anonymous. And the real goal, halavai, the second highest step of charity, is to do it double anonymous. So meaning you don't know who you're giving to, and they don't know who they're receiving from. And you could ask, how do you do that? Many ways. In many communities, they actually have these things called like gemachs, where, and this is what's going to happen on Purim. If you give some money to your local rabbi, he will then distribute it to a poor person. And that poor person will receive it not knowing where it's come from. And you won't know where it's going to. And now you've achieved a very, very, very high level of charity. And no one's embarrassed and no one's the wiser. And that's awesome. Ways, if you can find ways to give charity, and you don't even know where it's going to specifically. Because then there's no ego involved and there's no awkwardness involved. And there's purity involved. And really every community needs to have that, needs to have this kind of community charity chest where people can then facilitate and give out without you knowing who it goes to. The next one is at least one way. So at least you should be anonymous. So the donor knows who he's giving, but the poor man is unaware, because the key thing is not to embarrass. As we said, the Talmud says if you embarrass someone, if you make someone's face go red, it's almost like you've killed them. So it's absolutely pivotal that, and there's amazing, in every community, people give envelopes through the door so people don't know where it's come from. Nowadays, you can give people, I'm sure, money, transfer money without leaving it just anonymous, even on all these amazing crowdfunding scenarios. Just to do it from an anonymous perspective is awesome. You're achieving this level, which is the third highest level of the Rambam that way. Then the fourth one is that a step lower is when the recipient knows from who he's receiving, but the giver is unaware of the identity of the recipient. It was the practice of certain great sages that would wrap money in their cloak and throw it over their shoulders behind them so that the poor could take them without being seen, thus avoiding embarrassment. So that's awesome. That's also going to be awesome. You should know from someone who unfortunately now has to do fundraising, and I'm someone who, for example, loves to give and teach and educate and inspire, and therefore it's someone that I find it really hard to try and raise money. So it's so super amazing when actually somebody who I go to would just be so lovely and charming and nice and not make me feel like, sometimes literally I can go to places and they'll say, really, why do they need this charity? This charity isn't needed. There's so many other charities, blah, blah, blah. And you get a telling off. And amazingly then, Rabbi Nachman would say, Baruch Hashem, that's called bizyonot, that's called getting embarrassed, to try and look for embarrassments. There's nothing more embarrassing sometimes than going, knocking on doors and fundraising to erode your ego. But from the giver's perspective, it's so beautiful if you can invite the fundraiser in, post-COVID, and you can give them a cup of tea and schmooze with them. And there's this one amazing donor, there's many amazing donors in Golders Green, but one in particular who opens his house every Sunday morning pre-COVID and hopefully post-COVID. And he has around 30, 40 people sitting in the waiting room asking for charity. And do you know what he does? And this is what's unbelievable. Normally in a doctor's surgery, you have people in the waiting room, like next in, this wonderful man, which I don't want to say his name because I don't embarrass him because he's very discreet. What he does, he's the one who opens the door to everyone, walks them in, has a, how are you, where are you from, has a little bit of chit chat, what's your charity, is always lovely and always writes a nice something. And then he walks them out. He walks you out through the waiting room to the door. Thank you so much for coming. And then the next one. Amazing man in Golders Green. Amazing. And Mika Amcha Yisrael. That's one of the incredible things the Jewish people are you're really superb at. The levels of giving charity, and they have the ability to give charity in a beautiful way. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way, but that's the way to do it. The next level down is a step lower, is for the donor to present money directly to the poor man, but to give it to him before he asks. The next level, a step lower, is to give an appropriate amount to the poor after being asked. The seventh one is to give the poor man less than the appropriate amount, but to give it with a smile and a pleasant disposition. And then finally is to give it with a bit of sadness. And how many of you have ever given charity and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't really afford this, I don't really want to, but whatever, I'll give it. That's okay, but at least you're not angry. Because God forbid, if you do it and you're angry and there's a dislike and a reluctance and a regret, the Rambam wants to say, I'm not even sure that's charity. I'm not, because you could have done more damage than good if you're giving with resentment. So let's not give with resentment for sure. I'm sure you holy souls that are listening, but it's something to really think about, to really think, who am I giving to? And now let's come to the questions you were asking about the priority of it and how it works. And this is the way it works. Here we go. The phrase charity begins at home is absolutely consistent with Torah. That's where it comes from. And the Rambam writes, and Shulchan Aruch writes, that really draw a circle around you. And the people closest to you are the people first you've got to give to when there's a choice. And therefore, this is the order. Number one, spouse. Number two, then your children. Number three, your parents, which is interesting. The children actually come before your parents, even though parents, there's a mitzvah of honoring your parents. Number four, your grandparents. Number five, adult children. Number six, siblings. Seven, relatives, friends, neighbors, your town. And then we go straight to Jerusalem, the poor of Jerusalem. And then the poor in Israel. And then everywhere. And then everywhere. So I think it was Alex who asked, if you're a Jewish person, is it a mitzvah to give to non-Jewish charities? Absolutely. Of course it is. However, if you've got a certain amount, you've got to first and foremost make sure the Jewish charities, or those closest to your heart, are also being looked after as well. And I think it's really going to be about a balance. It's going to be about getting a balance going. Here's now the list of the priorities of what you're meant to give to. The highest, number one, charity would be what's called in halakha pidyon shavuim. Nice to see you, Sai. Thank you for joining. Number one mitzvah, God forbid, no one should ever know this one, but it's called redeeming captives. It's the number one mitzvah, God forbid. There's a Jewish soul which has been imprisoned, and they are asking for a ransom to redeem them. That is the number one thing to put your money in and to try and free them. And actually, if there's a choice in a man and a woman, it says the woman comes first because she could even be raped as well. So you're saving them from rape or from whatever. So that's the halacha pidyon shavuim. There was a famous story in 1280, a great sage that many of you might have heard of, called the Maharam of Rottenberg. And the German authorities captured him, and they asked for a ransom of 23,000 marks. And because he was the great rabbi of the town, it was pretty easy for everyone wanted to help and collect the money. But he made a ruling, and he goes, it's absolutely forbidden to redeem me, because if you pay the ransom, what's to stop them tomorrow capturing someone else, and then capturing someone else, and capturing someone else? So he put a halakha that you couldn't go and redeem him. And in fact, he was captured for 7 years, and he tragically died in prison too. But in those 7 years, amazingly, he still gave Torah lectures. There was no Facebook in those days. So he used to speak from his prison bars, and some of the members of the community were allowed by the prison bars and would hear his lectures from outside. And he actually, some of his books were written in those last 7 years. He died in prison, and then horrifically, they still wouldn't release his body, and they still were trying to ask for ransom. People didn't want to go against him. Finally, 14 years later, there was a Jewish guy called Alexander who just, enough already, we've got to release him. And he did pay a ransom, and he did bury him. But then, see what you think about this. He made a deal that he made a condition that I'm going to ransom him, but I want to be buried next to him. Why? Because when a soul is buried, when a body's buried, part of the soul still remains by the body, and it's very high level. That's why soulmates tend to try and be buried together, and to be buried by a tzaddik or in a tzaddik's grave actually elevates you, and he understood that and wanted to be buried by him. I mean, it's a big question. I don't know what you think. Was that right or wrong to do that? From what we've learned from the Rambam, really the highest way to give is to do it anonymously, to do it where you're not gaining. Don't know if he was right or wrong. I don't want to judge. Never been in that situation. Interesting if it was right or wrong. And therefore, what brings us now, tragically, in modern day scenarios, are when Israeli soldiers are captured, the Gilad Shalitz of this world, where there's always famous debates, because if you release him and then release, 1,000 terrorists, then is that what's going to happen? Very interesting halakhic questions. I'm not going to go into it now, but you can imagine how complex it is, especially with the ruling of Maharam of Rottenberg that he said not to release him, even though it's the biggest mitzvah of all. So it's super complicated, and every case would be somewhat different, but for sure it's the number one mitzvah in charity. Number two. You still there, everybody? Any questions? You can ask some questions now about the practical ones. Number two, life-saving. If it's to save life, so if you have charities which are literally saving lives, people who are literally investing in ventilators during COVID, that was an amazing, if that was literally saving lives. And I have to big up just now again the doctors and the nurses who have been heroes, and the soldiers in the battle against COVID who have literally put their lives on the line and saved lives. It's humbling. It's really humbling if you've got any friends or loved ones who are doctors and nurses and have saved lives, because the number one spiritual act we can do is called pikuach nefesh, is to save a life. And if there is a choice of a charity which saves life and a choice of one that doesn't, then first and foremost give to the one that can save a life. Number three, then is poverty. But this is where it gets really fascinating. There's this phrase which, Irecha koidem, your city comes first, because of this circumference. And this is the idea about the Jewish causes. But, if we don't look after ourselves, who will look after us? If we want to be a light to the nations, we can only do that if we're still a light. If no one else is really going to take care of us. So first and foremost, we need to take care of us. And then, absolutely, we need to have global love and have this global solidarity of helping those in Africa and helping those in Rwanda. And it's amazing what different Jewish charities do around the world. And we should continue to do that. But from a micro perspective, it's super important to know that charity does begin at home, and the poverty in the way it goes, like for those of you who live in London, first of all, you've got to give to those in London who need. Then you go to Jerusalem, Israel, and then everyone else. Even though I just want to share with you something that I feel very strongly about from the Baal Shem Tov. As you know, I love teaching the Torah of the Baal Shem Tov. If something comes to you, though, into your eyes, into your email, into your WhatsApp messaging, but even more so, into your heart from a friend, I really feel that it's a message from Hashem, and at least give something. See, that we don't believe in randomness. That's what Amalek believes in. We believe everything happens for a reason. Every message we get is a message from Hashem. And therefore, even if you're just giving a few pounds, just giving a few dollars, a few shekels, just give. If it comes to you, give. And then even more, there's an amazing verse in Koheles, which says, Hoylech achrei libcha. Go after your heart. In chapter 11, verse 9, go after your heart. Where King Solomon says, you've got to follow your heart. And when it comes to charity, very much so. Some of you will have charities close to your heart. Now, it shouldn't just be a charity that, one of your family members went through cancer, so now you want to give to cancer. That's also very important to give to. I'm talking about something even deeper than that, not just some circumstances, something that just touches your heart and soul, and that's your baby. And it's nothing wrong with having a charity which you have this incredible deep spiritual affinity to, that's kind of your baby, and you do that. Which brings me to the next one, because many people give a lot of charity to Jewish causes. The Jewish people give a lot to Jewish causes, to synagogues, to schools, to Jewish outreach organizations, Jewish continuity, and it's on the next one. So after redeeming lives, life-saving, poverty. The next one then is Judaism, is Am Yisrael Chai, to keep the Jewish people still alive. And therefore you should know it's part of your 10% when you pay synagogue fees, when you pay to go and hear a Torah lecture, when you pay for anything Jewish continuity, even to buy Jewish books. Even to buy Jewish books, that can be still called part of your 10% because you're helping the Jewish people continue. Next, emotional pain, to help charities which help solve and take away, God forbid, people's emotional pain. Obviously, mental pain, you could say now, we know so clearly that mental pain you could even call as life-saving. So Jamie, organizations which really help mental illness, I would say, is closer to life-saving with the amount of suicide that's out there. But then just emotional pain is a cool one. And then only after you've looked after humans, that's when you're meant to look after animals, then the environment, then the arts, which is all charity and all classifies as charity. So I was just saying that, Alex, right? So you should absolutely can, if you're an animal lover and it touches your heart, as King Solomon says, it means a lot to you, then absolutely my point to you, Alex, will be, please don't just give to animals. A lot of people in their wills leave a huge amount to animals. My dad always used to kind of say sarcastically that the charities for animals are called the royal charities, and to humans it's national one. And that kind of doesn't really make sense, because first of all, it's humans. First of all, we do have a mitzvah to keep humans alive and care for humans and care for humanity. We are the ones with Hashem's soul, and we are the ones who have that higher level of free will. We are the ones who Hashem has created the world for mankind's free will to emulate Hashem. Animals are the next level down. So yes, give to animals if it means a lot to you, but it shouldn't be instead of humans. It should be after you've given to human charities as such. Hope that's answered. Any other questions before I give you some inspirational stories? Any questions? Happy to take a few questions now before, see if there was a question on Instagram. Is it charitable to, are you still there, Alicia? Are you still there? So is she still there? Is it charitable to give to a homeless drug user who asks for change? I'm in this position a lot where I'm asked for money, but they're a very, very good question. So tricky. So a homeless drug user, obviously the best way is to try and find her accommodation, try and find a shelter, try and find food. Obviously to give money to someone who's either an alcoholic or a drug user, I'm not sure, I probably obviously wouldn't advise it. I wouldn't advise it. You know, in Tel Aviv, there's so much homelessness, and there's this guy who used to be really near to me, where he would have a big bottle in his hand, but he used to sit by the supermarket in Ben Yehuda. So sometimes I would buy something extra from the supermarket and give it to him then. So I'm much more into you buy them food, even though you could argue it's a bit patronizing. But I do know what, and again, unfortunately in Tel Aviv, it was so sad how much homelessness there is there. I used to really try, if I had the time, and just like sit down and have a chat. Because I think more than anything, if you can also show an affinity in your humanity and have a conversation, and that brings them, I think, as much of a smile as it is if you can give them money, to give them friendship, to give them care, to give them love. I think that's super important. Okay, I see on, so then we can be there to care for animals. Of course we can, Catherine. I find it difficult to buy them food if I can afford. Yeah, any other questions? I don't see really any other questions before we move on to cool stories. Any other questions? So, obviously what Crystal says, obviously you've got to do a bit of research, some of the charities, because, you know, there's certain charities that actually really could be almost harmful to causes maybe very close to your heart. But in short, if you're on a airplane, then they tell you at the end, they tell you before you leave that if there's a problem with the oxygen, put on your ventilator first and then your child's. And that's really, Jonathan Sachs used to say this a lot about Jewish causes. Even though we as Jews, our job is to be a light to the nations and help those around the world and help those on the other. And that is what it means to make a Kiddush Hashem, to show that we care about the whole of God's humanity. At the end of the day, though, we still also, first of all, have to make sure we're alive and we are sustained, and we put on the ventilator ourselves first, our family, our loved ones, those in our city, those in Israel, And please God, there's going to be more to go around, and there'll be plenty, please God, to then help other causes around the world, and then other causes which aren't even human ones as well. Let me give you a bit of inspiration now. Here we go. Some super amazing stories about charity. Listen up, and then I'll be happy to take a few more questions at the end as well. First beautiful story, which really made me super emotional when I learnt it. It's a story about the Kabbalistic Rabbi. His name is Maharam Yeshua Heschel, who was one of the very lucky Rebbes to survive the Holocaust. In fact, he was close to this other great Rebbe called the Klausenberger Rebbe, who suffered enormously from the ravages of the Holocaust, losing his entire family. But the Maharam Yeshua Heschel was more fortunate. He managed to escape to America before the war broke out. And after World War II, these two Rebbes met, and the Klausenberger asked the Kabbalistic, what did you do? What virtue of good deed did you do to merit your entire family being saved from Hitler and the Nazis? In his humility, the Rebbe didn't want to say a clear response, but finally said, and this changed my life, listen to this. He said, I was living in Vienna, in Austria, in 1938, when the Nazis occupied the country. They immediately began to plunder and persecute and torture the Jews. Alarmed for my well-being, one of my Hasidim gave me a tremendous, enormous amount of money, saying, dear Rebbe, it's clear these times of war are suffering. Here's enough money to survive the war. And the Rebbe said this put him in a terrible dilemma, because listen to this custom. It was his custom never to go to sleep a night with a penny in the house. Any funds available, he would always distribute immediately to those in need. So the Rebbe had this custom. He wouldn't go to sleep if he had a penny. If there was, $100 there, he would just have to give it, to find some poor people to give it to, and he would distribute it to the poor. But now he's got this huge amount, and he's never yet gone to sleep with money in his house. On the other hand, he could save his life to use that money to get to America. So he didn't know what to do. He finally decided, the Rebbe said, I'm not going to deviate from my way. And that day I distributed, he said, the whole fortune to charity. And why did he get saved in the end? And he says, he just thinks that was the spiritual act that Hashem said, okay, you can get saved. And he got saved in the end when one of his other students said, we heard what you did, Rebbe. What were you thinking? This time I'm giving you money, but it's not for you to give to charity. It's forbidden if you give to charity with this money. This is only to get you to America somehow, and use the money to get to America. And he got whisked away to America. And I just think that's amazing. How many of us don't even dream of, we're looking to store money for our future, and store money for our retirement. From a spiritual perspective, it's so important. You have money, which is available, and a charity cause comes your way, give something. There was a friend of mine in Golders Green, the most amazing donor called Benzi Dunner. He used to give millions away. I knew people, they would go to him and he would say, I'm doing a deal. If the deal works out, you can have it. Not 10%, you can have it. Yes, he was a millionaire, so he didn't need, to finance his own family from that deal. He would literally give away deals. There was, someone famously came to Golders Green years back to try and raise money for an operation for his mother. And he had to raise £25,000, and he managed to raise a couple of £1,000, and it was like nearly the day to go back. And he came to Benzi Dunner, and right there, Benzi Dunner wrote a check for the other 23,000. He wrote the whole thing, right? He gave him, he didn't mess about. He passed away, I think, just after Purim, and a few days early, he'd given away apparently £4 million on Purim. So we're talking about different caliber of charity givers and it puts us to shame, and it shows us what we're capable of doing. Next story. This, again, is so emotional. To give charity during the Holocaust, different level. So there was a Holocaust survivor called Rabbi Shimon Zucker. And he relates the following story. He said, during World War II, he was a prisoner in a slave labor camp in Kamenetz. And many of the Jewish prisoners were dying out of malnutrition and starvation. And he writes, I knew that I could only get a little more food that will keep them alive, but there was no extra morsel. You know, they literally had a tiny bit of food that kept them alive. But he said something amazing happened one day. In honor of their holiday season, the cruel taskmasters decided to give each worker a double portion of food in one day. So this Shimon, can you imagine to have this wisdom and have this holiness during the Holocaust? He said, what a great idea. And he stood up and said, "Stock, everybody! It's a chance to give charity. They're giving us double the amount. We don't need that." If every one of the workers who was receiving an extra portion would donate just a small part for the starving brothers and sisters, we could save people from death. And he stood and he said, partners in suffering who've had a chance to give extra money, to give our food, to give some charity, we can save lives. And he did that. The next day, he says, I was summoned to the headquarters of the camp to stand trial for my criminal activities. He writes, I was charged with the terrible offense of organizing communist activities because I encouraged my comrades to share their wealth. For this high crime, I was condemned to die. But then I attempted to defend myself by explaining to the commandant that my sole motivation was a desire to save my brethren from a certain starvation. Much to my surprise, the Nazi's heart was softened and he dismissed me and my case with one word, out. And I just think that's amazing. Isn't that amazing? That you're in the Holocaust and you're thinking even then, with the bit of food you have, that's what it means to be Jewish. That whatever you have is not really yours. It's there to share. It's there to do a mitzvah with. And then my penultimate story, listen to this story from the Ramah. Have you heard of the Ramah? Some of you maybe come with me to Poland. We've gone to the famous Ramah synagogue in Krakow with Moshe Isserlis. So in that, we're going to give you two stories about Krakow now. Story number one. There lived in Krakow a simple Jew called Moshe the Schlepper. Because he eked out his meager living by carrying some freight and furniture from place to place. Because he had other nicknames. One was called Moshe the Shicker. Why? Moshe the Drunk. Because he had a very unusual custom. On welcoming Shabbos, all day he would scrimp and scrape from his meager earnings. But every Friday afternoon, before immersing himself in the mikveh for Shabbos, he would go to the local tavern, local pub, order a tall glass of honey, mead, which he drank with relish. And as he sipped the intoxicating beverage, he would start singing Shabbos, Shabbos, good Shabbos. He would start making Shabbos songs, getting a bit drunk, like a pre-L'chaim of Shabbos. I know some of you are into that. Moshe the Shicker used to do that, and he was renowned for that. So for many years, he never deviated from this holy custom. Until one Friday afternoon, things changed. As Moshe made his way to the tavern, he noticed the neighbor of his watching him from her window, saying, "Oy vey, he's about to treat himself to a drink. I don't even have pennies to purchase candles for Shabbos." And overhearing, Moshe is now in a real quandary because he only had those few coins to have his drink. On the other hand, this poor lady wasn't about to light Shabbat candles, which is a bigger mitzvah. So he decided there's no question he's got to help her. And he went and he gave her the money. And he went to the mikveh. A little while later, right before Shabbos, Moshe died. Moshe the Shicker died. And they guarded his lifeless body in a special room adjacent to the Ramah shul, so they could purify it straight after Shabbos. Shabbos came and no one even knew he died. As soon as Shabbos ended, Moshe appeared in a dream to the Ramah and said, "I've come as a messenger from Hashem, from the heavenly tribunal, to warn the Rav that in heaven they're displeased with him and is in danger." The Ramah's like, "Moshe is Shicker, what is going on?" And Moshe Shicker said, no, I'm really here. This is really from Hashem. I'm actually passed away. I know you didn't know, but I actually passed away. And I've got a message from Hashem. You're in trouble. And finally, the Ramah said, "Okay, you must be telling the truth. What have I done wrong?" Moshe the Shicker said, "Because the Rav isn't fulfilling the mitzvah of charity properly." He said, "How can that be? I go around personally, I collect money from the poor." He says, "Yes, you do, but you only go to the homes of rich and dignified people when you're assured an honorable and sizable donation. But the poor and the low-class people, you ignore. You never give them a chance to participate in the mitzvah. They're very upset with you in heaven. Terribly shaken. The Ramah said, what can I do to rectify? And Rav Moshe said, from now on, the Rav must commit to collecting charity from the whole city, from the poorest, the lowest classes, no matter how difficult and how demeaning it is. And the Ramah accepted this message and then asked Rav Moshe, how come you get to be the messenger of Hashem so quickly, even before your burial, to teach me this very important, humbling lesson about charity? And Moshe related, he told him the story about he gave his charity just before Shabbos to help her buy Shabbos candles and to stop his custom. And that was worth so much in Shamayim. That was worth so much that in heaven they decided if we let him live for a few more years, he's not going to be on the same level as he is now. So for his spiritual sake, he's now worth such an incredible high portion in heaven. It's worth Rav Moshe coming now to Gan Eden straight away. Which again just tries to teach us that the lesson of charity, my friends, it should hurt. It shouldn't be easy. It should be, oh my gosh, can I afford that? But yalla, I'm going to sacrifice, I'm going to give. And again, listen to the idea. He's walking to his mikveh and he hears a voice. Rav Moshe hears this woman say, I need for my Shabbos candles. That means when you hear that voice saying, I need help. I need help. Help me. You know, my beautiful daughter today has been sending WhatsApps right, left and center because she's got a good friend of hers who needs help looking, you know, she's got a terrible financial situation where she's close to losing her children and she needs financial help. And my beautiful daughter's been doing tremendous work if anybody wants to donate to her cause. But my point is, it came to her and now she's helping others and she's now putting it in front of other people's faces. So when the charity cause comes your way, it's not random. It's Hashem saying to you, what are you going to do? Even if you just give a bit. But the fact that you're giving means Hashem sending you a message and then you're responding. I'll finish off with my famous charity story, my favorite charity story. And it really is the kind of, very emotional for me, this story. I heard it, first of all, from the famous Shlomo Carlebach. It's one of his legendary stories. So it's a true story. It happened approximately 400 years ago, back in Poland. And it's a story called Yosela the Miser. There was a guy in Krakow who was famous for being one of the wealthiest men in Krakow, but the biggest miser going. He was such a miser. He wouldn't give a penny to charity. Nothing, nothing, nothing. So much so that little kids used to throw stones at him in the street. And he used to say, ugh, you're that disgusting miser. And in fact, but every poor person always tried their luck. They always tried their luck to try and, because they were hoping they were the ones who were going to soften his heart, because he must have a heart. And therefore, every poor person had that opportunity. And this is what happened. They used to go to his house and they used to knock on his door. And he used to say, yeah, who's there? And they said, we want your help. He goes, sure, come in the house. And they used to come in the house and he used to take a pen and paper. And he said, what's your name? Where do you live? How many children do you have? What's your financial situation? How much do you need? Almost taunting them, like making them think there's a chance. And then he laughed. He took the pen, threw it at them and said, do you think that I'm going to give you money? Have you ever given me money? Have you ever given anyone money? Go and get a job. Go and work harder. Don't come to me. Get out of my house. And he actually then would go up and physically throw them out of the house. And they would normally be crying. And he would do that to every single poor person. He would literally totally humiliate them. They'd be distraught. And he was just a disgusting miser and known as that. And he was such a miser that even though when he was getting ill and old, he didn't want to pay for his own burial. It's called the Chevra Kadisha. It was paying, but we pay the community to bury us, to get our grave site, and he didn't even want to spend money on that. So near the end of his days, the Chevra Kadisha came to him and they said, Yosela, we're giving you one more chance now. We're not going to bury you if you don't pay your burial fees. You can afford it more than anyone in the city. And he goes, I'm going to pay you fees. I'm going to pay you fees. Forget about it. He goes, I'll bury myself. And with that, he says, Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad. He passed away. Yosler the miser died. And the Chevra Kadisha said, we said we're not going to bury you. Why should we bury you? You haven't paid your burial fees. They were so upset. They left. He died on a Monday. Tuesday, he was unburied. Wednesday, he was unburied. By Thursday now, he's still unburied. And it's actually creating a tremendous smell in the building. Health and safety. This guy is smelling up the building. It was super unsafe. So they said, okay, let's now, for our sake, just put him in the ground. And they, put him in a carpet. They rolled him down. They had the famous Jewish cemetery in Krakow by the Moshe Isserlis, by the Ramah, that I've been there so many times. And there was a tree right there. They made a little hole. They put him in the hole. Goodbye, Yosler the miser. Goodbye. On that Thursday afternoon, the great rabbi was a rabbi called the Tosfos Yom Tov. He was born at the end of the 16th century. It's now about 1630 time. And Tosfos Yom Tov is getting a knock on the door from a poor person. Rabbi, it's coming to Shabbos. I don't know how I'm going to pay for my family on Shabbos. He said, okay, how much do you need? 20 minutes later, another knock on the door. Rabbi, how are we going to pay for Shabbos? 20 minutes later, another knock on the door. Another knock on the door. He got the poor people of the town that Thursday night, that Friday morning, are all crying to him, how are they going to pay food for Shabbos? And he's like, what is going on? They haven't come last week or the week before or the year before or the year before that. Why have they never come before? And he can't understand. All of a sudden, boom, this week, no one can afford Shabbos food. So the Tosfos Yom Tov is like racking his brain and he's thinking, can't be. Can't be, because the only thing that's really changed in the city this week is this miser passed away. So he starts now, the next time a poor person comes, says, let me ask you a question. Did you ever meet Yosler the miser? And he said, yeah, of course, we all met Yosler the miser. He said, we would all go to his house. He'd write down our name, our family, our address. And then he'd throw us out. And Tosfos Yom Tov said to them, but how did you afford food last Shabbos and the Shabbos before and the Shabbos before? And he said, yeah, because, for years and years now, every Wednesday night, in the middle of the night, an envelope comes to our door with all the money we need, all the money we needed for Shabbos, all the money we needed. The Tosfos Yom Tov said, don't you realize it was Yosler the miser who really wasn't a miser. He wasn't a miser after all. He was just pretending. He was obviously just learning this Rambam that we learnt, that you should give anonymously, and he took it to the whole different level. But he wasn't a miser really, he was a tzaddik. He was a hidden righteous soul. He was the most incredible, generous person, just didn't want to embarrass himself. He didn't want anyone ever to realize that he's the one who's actually funding the whole city, looking after all the poor of the city. And not only is he not getting recognition, he's getting humiliation. Can you imagine how high his soul is? How great he is? Can you even imagine? And he straight away that Friday morning, he opened up the ark and he said, Yosler, we asked for forgiveness. We asked for forgiveness. We left you unburied all week long. All week long you've been unburied. The biggest mitzvah of all is, God forbid, someone passes away and they're unburied. You have to bury them. It's called a mace mitzvah, to bury the dead. There's no one's buried. And they left him in the city. He realized he could be a terrible punishment in the spiritual world. And he went and he opened up the ark in Shul with a minyan and asked for forgiveness and closed his eyes and fell to the ground. And the Tosfos Yom Tov writes that at that point, Yosler the miser came to him. And Tosfos Yom Tov said, I'm so sorry, Yosler, I'm so sorry. We left you unburied. No one looked after you. And Yosler the miser replied to him and said, don't worry, Rebbe. It was all me. It was my choice. And don't worry, I was fine. As soon as I passed away, do you know who joined me? Maharam of Rottenberg. And Yitzchak Avinu, Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, they all were with me. They looked after me. They nurtured me. It was the most beautiful, blissful experience. I was absolutely fine. It was down on me. Don't feel bad. you're of course forgiven. There's nothing actually to forgive. And at that point, the Tosfos Yom Tov cried and said, we're so sorry. And the Tosfos Yom Tov said, I would like to be buried next to you. And he made a decree to his family and loved ones to say that he's going to be now buried next to Yosel the Miser. And if you actually go to Krakow and you go to the cemetery, you can go right next to the Tosfos Yom Tov's great grave is the grave of herein lies Yosel the Miser. But Shlomo Carlebach doesn't stop there. He goes on and says, years later, he was attending a multi-faith conference. He was a rabbi and he was there with some Christian leaders and Islamic leaders. And Shlomo Carlebach said this story about Yosel the Miser at this multi-faith conference. And afterwards, when Shlomo Carlebach was going home, Joe the bishop, who was on the stage, was running after him and saying, can you just tell me the story again? Tell me the story again. Shlomo told him the story again. Joe the bishop, I need your number. The next day, Joe the bishop called him back and said, Shlomo, I need to tell you my story. And Joe the bishop said, this is what's just happened to me. My father was also a religious Christian. And he died a few years back. And my mother has just spoken to me and said, there's a secret I've been hiding from you, Joe, all your life. And the secret is that really I'm Jewish. And your father rescued me from the Holocaust and he liberated me. And we fell in love, but he made me promise not to reveal that I was Jewish to anyone, to our children, and to bring you up as a Christian. But now I just feel before I'm dying, you deserve to know that actually you're a Jewish boy. And this is where you come from. And actually, if you want to know your past, I come from a very famous line from Krakow, where my great-great-grandfather was a great sage called Yosel the Miser. He was the famous Yosel the Miser. I've come directly from him, and that's why we called you Joe, which is the English name for Yosel. And Joe the bishop heard the story and said, can't be true. But then my mum's telling it to me, maybe it is true. What am I going to do? And Joe the bishop said the previous night he prayed to God and he said, God, you tell me what to do. If really I'm Jewish, show me a sign, bring me a sign. And then the next day, Shlomo Carlebach, you're saying this story about Yosel the Miser. And I've just been told by my mum that I'm a descendant from Yosel the Miser. And he took that to mean that Hashem's sending him this message that he should be now going back to his roots. And Shlomo Carlebach finishes off by saying, a few years later, he got a letter from Joe the bishop saying the following: Shlomo, I'm standing here now by the Western Wall. I'm about to get married to a Jewish lady. I've been studying in a yeshiva in Israel all these years. As a consequence of your story, I just wanted to say thank you so much. Because if not for your story about Yosel the Miser, I wouldn't have been able to have the courage to go back to my Jewish roots. That's how Shlomo ends the story. So in conclusion, we're saying, hope you enjoyed that story in conclusion. We're saying that the Rambam said one of the greatest ways to give charity is to give it anonymously. It's something we need to think about, that when we give anonymously, the root of the word tzedakah is the word tzedek, is the word justice. You know, if you look on websites, you see there's a whole debate, justice versus charity. Is it just to give charity or is it volunteering? Is it even just? According to the Torah, according to Judaism, it's absolutely just. Do you know why? Because it's not yours. Money's not yours, it's Hashem's. It's there to give to. So next time someone knocks on your door, someone asks you, don't think, chutzpah, they're asking me. Say, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity, for fulfilling this great mitzvah, a mitzvah that the Rambam Maimonides writes, more than you're meticulous about any other mitzvah, you should be meticulous about charity. Just one last thing, this Shabbat is a very important Shabbat for the Jewish people. It's called Shabbat Zachor. It's where it's a mitzvah in the Torah to remember that Amalek tried to destroy us and to kind of remove them from the world. But more than that, remove Amalek from our heart. Amalek means doubt. It means lack of clarity. It's that tried to destroy us on Purim. And it's a mitzvah to remember that. And therefore, if any of you can't go to synagogue, if you can't go to synagogue because of COVID, then at least read it from a chumash. Open up a chumash at home and read the parts called Parshat Zachar. But also you should know mystically they say it's also called Zachar because it's always the Shabbat connected to Moshe Rabbeinu's birth. Moshe Rabbeinu on Zayin Adar, tomorrow night is the 7th of Adar. He was born on Zayin Adar. He passed away on Zayin Adar. And tomorrow night, I really recommend you and therefore Shalom Zachar, we say Shalom Zachar, when a baby boy is born, the first Shabbat is called the Shabbos Zachar, the Shabbos for the male. Also, it's connected to the fact that Moshe Rabbeinu was always born and passed away this Shabbat. So therefore, tomorrow night, I really recommend that you take a candle, you light a candle, Le'iloi Nishmas Moshe Rabbeinu Ben Amram. You say some Tehillim, maybe say the Tehillim of Moshe Rabbeinu, 91. Yoshe B'Seisei Elyon, say, finishing off first with the last line of 90, V'noim Hashem Elokeinu Masi Udeinu Konenu, Oleinu Masi Udeinu Konenu, because that connects words of Hashem, that's Miyachet Hashem's Shemos, Hashem's names, and then you say Psalm 91, and say in the merit of Moshe Rabbeinu, and then daven to Hashem and say, Moshe Rabbeinu, can you advocate my prayers? And please God, you'll see tremendous miracles. You'll see salvations from praying and connecting to Moshe Rabbeinu tomorrow night of all times. Just to finish off with about 5.5 years ago when we found out my daughter was pregnant for the first time. We were trying to work out her due date, which is like around, I just had this gut, crazy, weird spiritual feeling that she was going to have her first baby on Zayin Adar. And I said to her, you're going to have a baby on Zayin Adar. And she said, Daddy, what do you know? Actually, it's 2 weeks before the due date, and it's obviously not going to happen. And then when it came to her due date, I was saying to her, chill out. You're not going to hospital yet. It's not ready. It's going to be Zayin Adar. It's going to be Zayin Adar. And she's like, what are you chatting about? Anyway, a few days before, when she's now starting to panic a bit and worry and say, oh my gosh, it might be Zayin Adar, I'm saying to her, I hope, obviously it's going to be born Zayin Adar. I hope, you're going to call him Moshe, because, it's the day when Moshe Rabbeinu was born. He's like, we've thought of a name, Daddy, so don't give me that. What are you chatting about? We don't go there. We've got a name already. We've got a name. And I said, okay, whatever. It was Zayin Adar and Baruch Hashem. He was born on the 7th of Adar. And then at his bris milah, they surprised me because they had this beautiful name, Raphael. And his name is Raphael Moshe. They also added in Moshe as well. So my first grandson is called Raphael Moshe, who was born on Zayin Adar. So it's happy birthday, Raphael. And happy birthday, Moshe Rabbeinu. And happy day to all of you, because it's Mishanechnas Adar Marbem Besimchos. We said at the beginning, please enter Adar, give lots of charity, and Bezrat Hashem, the whole of Am Yisrael should see tremendous, tremendous happiness immediately with Hashem's help. So again, if anybody would like to donate and sponsor tonight's class, just send me a message, and then we can put, if you want to put it with your name as well, we can put your name on YouTube, even though after what we've spoken about anonymously, you may not want to. But thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for sharing, for being with me. If anybody's got any questions, I'm happy to take some questions. Anybody got any questions? Let me know. Questions, anyone? Ollie and Katie, you stayed all the way, unless you just came and then went, and then you just come back near the end. I doubt it, because you wouldn't have known I finished at this time. So thank you so much. Any questions, anybody? Any questions about levels of charity giving? It is quite complex. Definitely super complex. Happy to take a few questions. What's Johnny saying? Should they have ransomed him out of the jail to save his life with against his wishes? Yeah, that's what we're saying, John. It's super complicated. I wouldn't even, know halachically. I don't know. Because I think he had a point, Johnny, right? Because it's very logical. If they would have paid his ransom, then they would have gone and kidnapped someone else the next day, and then someone else. So then you're actually harming more people, and that's why he's probably halachically correct. So, if he's able to, he wasn't doing it out of being a martyr. He was doing it because he didn't want to. He didn't want other people to go through that. So he was saving their lives. So he was in a sense. Yeah, so absolutely you can donate for Mishlach Manot to the United Synagogue. But remember, Katie, there's two things. There's Mishlach Manot, which is giving food parcels, but then there's also Matanot Lev Yonim, which is a different mitzvah, probably way more important mitzvah. People spend so much money on Mishloach Manot, but not enough on Matanot Levyonim. It should actually be the other way round. What's Oli saying? Can you tell us a little bit about when you give, your income is replenished anyway? Oh, sorry, Oli, I can't believe I forgot to say that. My dear friend, because there's so much to say. It's the only mitzvah that you can actually even test Hashem. When Hashem gives it to you, He's for sure going to give you times 10 back. Your money comes back to you like a boomerang, crazy fast. So actually, you don't lose out. You actually get more. It's actually segula for giving more money, and it's actually the only time. Normally, you can't test Hashem. You can't say, I'm going to keep Shabbat this week. Hashem, I'm expecting, a big deal this week. But you can say, I'm going to give even 20%, and I expect it all back and more. And Hashem says, no problem. You can even test me. So thank you, Oli, for reminding me to say that. I really appreciate that question. Ori just said, may I ask you to just run through the procedure? Yeah. So I'm saying, Ori, what you should do is number one, light a candle. And you say, this candle is lit Eloi Nishmat Moshe Rabbeinu Alav Shalom ben Amram. And when you light a candle, it says Ner Neshama Nishmas Odom. The candle is always connected to the soul. Then you should. It's up to you what you want to do. I like the idea of saying to the Psalms that Moshe Rabbeinu actually wrote himself. Moshe Rabbeinu actually wrote Psalm number 91, but the Kabbalists actually say the line before 91 as a introduction to be miyachid some of the names of Hashem to really bring a lot of power to it. And then you make your own prayer. And after tonight, I'd say you give charity in the merits of Moshe Rabbeinu as well. And then to make you pray for the things you want in your life. You're looking for your soulmates, you're looking for health, you're looking for finance, you're looking, one of the things you should pray for, my friends, Hashem, help me have more, if you're listening, help me have success with livelihood in order that I can give way more charity. And don't say it like from a kind of cynical perspective, really mean it and kind of know what charity you want to give. Have a clear vision of the charity that you're going to give to and how much you're going to make a difference, whether it be for Jewish charities, whether it be for life-saving ones, poverty, whatever it may be. Have that clear picture, and then you're going with that picture to say to Hashem, that's why Hashem, please help me do so much better financially. That's the way to do it. And you should do this tomorrow night, Ari, correct? Tomorrow night, it's a tikkun for everything. It's a tikkun Moshe Rabbeinu, right? Moshe Rabbeinu, it's his Yortzeit tomorrow night, Zayin Adar, very holy spiritual night, crazy spiritually holy. That's why the irony of all ironies is when Haman went and did the lottery for when he wants to destroy us, and randomly it came to Adar, the best month for the Jewish people. And he was so stupid and so pig-sighted, right? And narrow-minded and said, Moshe Rabbeinu died on that day. It's a bad day for the Jewish people. Even though he must have selectively just chose to forget that he was also born on that day. And anyway, when a tzaddik dies on that day, it's not a bad day. It's a good day. Like Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, when he passes away on the 18th of Iyar, Lag BaOmer, it's a tremendously high spiritual day. So actually, when a tzaddik leaves this world, it's actually a beautiful day for the Jewish people as well, because it brings a lot of light and joy on a year in, year out basis for the Jewish people. Good question, Katie. So Mishloach Manot, you can donate now for sure. Matanot Le'evyonim, you should wait for Friday itself. On Friday itself, you should try and donate. And actually, the best way to do it is really, if possible, to go and give to the local rabbis. And the local rabbis are the ones who then distribute it to the poor of the community. So that's what I'll be doing. I'll be giving it to the actual people who are the poor people in the community. And then you're not even meant to give a check, because it's money that they can use to buy their Purim meal for that day. So that's really important, that you're actually giving money that they can spend ASAP. So yeah, I think it's really important to give as much as you can on Purim Day. It's an incredibly merciful time, and it's going to be fab for us. Yeah, Mishloach Manot, you can give tonight, Katie, no problemo. Any other questions? Ari, it's great to meet you. Come again, my friend, come again. We do this every Wednesday night. And next Wednesday night is going to be sick. It's going to be about Purim and the Kabbalistic roots of Purim. And it's going to be kind of one of my favorite talks. So please join me. Thank you so much, everybody. God bless. Lots of love. next Sunday night, every Sunday night we do it on Facebook as well, with an amazing book called Mesilat Yesharim from the Ramchal every Sunday night. We actually then store them all on YouTube, so you can catch up on YouTube on 613, J Network 613 on YouTube. So we're doing Sunday night Path to Just. Monday night this week is Kabbalah of Love and the Kabbalistic meditation. We're going to teach you Jewish meditation this Monday night and have a meditation session. Alex, it was really amazing to meet you. I'm really happy you joined. And then Wednesday night next week, it will be all about Purim and happiness and getting drunk and why you should get drunk. Thank you so much, Catherine. And Josh is in the house. Very nice to see you, Josh. I really love it when you put your likes or when you put your comments, because then I know you're there. I know who's watching. And by the way, those people who aren't going to be watching it live, also please comment and press like and press messages to me, because I'd love to interact with you and share wisdom together. So lots of love and see you soon. Bye.